All right, you guys. Today I'm in Racine, Wisconsin for a Future Without Prisons protest. This is in honor of Malcolm and James, who was killed in the Racine prison or jail. So this is a protest in Racine that they are having to protest against this kind of policing and not taking care of people in the custody of the police department.
Justice! Now! Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down!
I want to welcome next Tammy from the family of Ronquale Ditello-Scott to speak on what has happened to them and give any updates and just speak in general. So thank you for being here. We really greatly appreciate your presence, and we're very sorry for your loss.
Appreciate everybody and their support for both the Malcolm family and ours for Ronquale Scott. He is my cousin. I helped raise Ronquale. He was only 22 years old when he had passed away. He just actually turned 22, so he was just beginning his life, and now he is no longer here to see his brothers and sisters grow up, his daughter grow up, his son, who's soon to be born, grow up. He will not even see his son be born, and this doesn't make any sense. Why? Why did he not come? Why did he not come back out of this jail? Why did he even get arrested if he blew zero? Right. We want answers. We want them now. We don't understand why. I am so lost for words for a lot of it because we need some answers from this, because his father has lost his firstborn son. His brothers and sisters lost their oldest brother. His kids lost their father, and it doesn't make any sense. Why did these men not come back out of this jail? They go in here and we ask for these people to protect us. We ask for them to stand behind us, and we ask for them to protect us. So why are they not protecting us?
Right.
Why are they hurting us more than they are protecting us? There's so many lives that's out here that we just came from a rally that I've heard thousands and thousands of lives out there that these police have done taking, and it doesn't make no sense. They want more money and raises? Why don't you train these people to take care of us better? Take these people, if they say they need mental health training or mental health help, give them mental health help and not put them in a jail. We need some justice for not just Malcolm and Claire. We need some justice for all of these lives that these police have been taking from all of these loved ones out here.
That's right.
I appreciate everyone and their love and their support for us and the help that for us to get justice for our loved ones and everyone else out here.
We're going to say Ronquale's name. What's his name?
Ronquale!
What's his name?
Ronquale!
What's his name?
Ronquale!
Solidarity with the family. All right, we want to welcome the James family up next, Sherry James, to talk about what their situation has been, how the sheriff, some of us know how the sheriff has chosen to communicate with them or not communicate with them, and the disturbing overtures the sheriff has made. So we're going to hand the mic to them right now.
Science!
condolence. I haven't heard anything about what's going on. It took many days before I even got to view Malcolm's body. But I'm not going to be before you that long, but what I'm calling for is more transparency. We need more transparency, and people have been swarming me with stories about the negligence that's going on across the street, and it needs to change. It needs to change. I know I'm aware that I'll never see my son again, but I don't want that to ever happen to anyone else. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I'm calling they're asking for more money for police, but what I'm asking for is more community support, more mental health awareness, money for that, money to save lives, money to save lives, not to kill people, okay? My son's name is Malcolm James. I'd like y'all to say it with me. What's his name?
Malcolm James!
What's his name?
Malcolm James!
What's his name?
Malcolm James!
Take joy, my king, and rest with your heavenly Father.
I want to thank the James family for being here, for speaking out about what has happened to them, the terrible crime that has been committed against their family, as well as Ronquale's family for speaking out against the terrible crime that has been committed against them. Just like Mrs. James said, we want to make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else. The idea is that it is zero, that people are not murdered by the police and not murdered by the incarceration system. But what we're seeing pretty clearly is that the police and the incarceration system are incapable of not murdering people. So we need to get rid of that system. We need to get rid of these buildings, these torture chambers. We need to get rid of the police. And we'll do it. We can accomplish it. The next speaker I want to welcome up is Brandon from the PSL. He's going to speak about his experiences being harassed by and arrested by the police. So I'll turn it over to them.
So the speech I wrote today is going to be a little bit different than the speech I give. So I was arrested while protesting against the Wauwatosa Police Department and Joseph Menza.
Fuck Joseph Menza!
We were advocating in favor of the Alvin Cole family at the time. It was right after the decision was made, and leading up to the day that I was arrested, they had been using militant action against the protesters there. The night I was arrested, I was targeted while riding my bicycle. I was doing coverage for Liberation News while also helping with some march with TPR, the People's Revolution of Milwaukee. 7 officers came and pulled me off my bicycle and threw me to the ground. While I was held on the ground, they continued to yell, "Stop resisting, stop resisting," while I was not resisting. I was tased 3 times and pepper sprayed. Each time, they continued to yell, "Stop resisting." Knowing every time they said that, they had full impunity to essentially do whatever they wanted to me was a terrifying feeling. The thought of what happened to Malcolm in his jail cell, considering that night there was reports that somebody was unresponsive due to tasing. The thought of being in a jail cell, being assaulted by police officers while also potentially in a suicidal crisis is terrifying. It's brutal. There's no place for that in these types of facilities. These are facilities that call themselves correctional facilities, houses of corrections, jails, whatever. And there's no corrections going on in there. There is just brutal mistreatment of people that are considered to be lesser than. We can't let these types of thank you. I appreciate that. We can't let these types of systems continue. They offer nothing in terms of redemption for any of the people that are arresting them. When I was locked in there, you couldn't get money to get a phone call out. When you were arrested, it's hard to get a hold of anybody, your family, to let them know what's going on. If you have a job, like you're potentially losing your job, losing your access to your income, your housing, potentially. Most of the people that I met in there were men just being held on basically bail jumping charges because most of them didn't have addresses, so they couldn't get the mail for the tickets they missed. They missed court hearings, they got picked up on something, and they got thrown in jail. Most people that are arrested are nonviolent offenders. Only less than 2% of people that are arrested are violent offenders. Most of these calls, domestic disturbances, people having mental health crises, people who need things other than people to come in and arrest people and create more problems for them. This is a cycle that creates nothing for people in terms of the redemption of the corrections that it claims to offer. It just continues to keep people caught in a cycle of poverty and lack of access to the resources that they need. And it's done this way by its very design. It's always been this way by its very design. It's always been meant to keep people that are down as a source of cheap labor, as a source of profit for the private prisons, which have their roots in the slave trade. These institutions are still modeled after the same slave trades. They've just changed the game and changed its face a little bit. They need to be abolished. We need to take funding from these resources and put them into resources that help people and not penalize them. We need to create rehabilitation and we need redemptive justice. Thank you for your time.
Say their name. What's their name?
Malcolm and Quayle.
Say their name.
Malcolm and Quayle.
What's their name?
Malcolm and Quayle.
Justice for who?
Malcolm and Quayle.
Justice for who?
Malcolm and Quayle.
Justice for who?
Malcolm and Quayle.
Don't forget about who?
Malcolm and Quayle.
Don't forget about who?
Malcolm and Quayle. All right, next we're going to hear an audio recording from a member of FFUP, who is one of the co-sponsors today, Damani Nantembu, who is currently an incarcerated person. Where are they incarcerated?
They're at Columbia Correctional.
They're at Columbia Correctional, currently incarcerated at Columbia Correctional, an activist, a prison abolition activist inside the correctional facility, and we're going to hear from them now. Yeah, so what?
This is Kit is going to introduce.
Oh, excellent, yeah.
All right. So first off, I want to pay my respects to Malcolm and Ronquale's family. And furthermore, I would like to thank everybody for coming out and to thank the organizers for putting this together. My name is Kit. I work with Forum for Understanding Prisons, as well as volunteering with a handful of prison abolition projects like the Lit Supply and Abolish MKE. When I was first told of this event, I reached out to a good friend of mine named Damani Nantembu. He's incarcerated at Columbia Correctional Institution, CCI, as he refers to it, a maximum security facility in Portage, Wisconsin. It's just north of the Capitol in Madison. And yeah, so now I'm going to play this recording of him speaking to all of us here today.
Good morning. All calls other than properly placed attorney calls may be monitored and recorded. Thank you for using IC Solutions. You may begin speaking now.
Hello?
Yo, it's all good.
Alright. My name is Damani. I am a black cat with revolutionary reflexes. And when I was compelled to exist in the jungles of DC, I had the instincts of a mongoose, which extended my cat lives to 99 currently. And so that there is no confusion, I'm not the other big, bad black cat, though I've spent 2 decades with them in the worst federal prisons in the country, including the infamous 88 Supermax in Florence, Colorado. Now, I'm in one of the most racist prisons I've ever seen. And I did time in Alabama in the 1980s. I'm currently at CCI Portage. I came to a federal prison the second time 28 years ago on July 17, 1993. and I have not been physically free since. My crime, 488 grams of crack cocaine. And after entering this new 21st century slave plantation called the American penal system, what I call the most insidious, pernicious, sophisticated form of genocide ever invented after chattel slavery, because it has existed for at least 200 years under the nose of all, yet very few people were outraged, unlike myself and my friends Kit, Ben, Ty, Emily, and Peg, and others. The need for slave revolt. How many of you knew that your U.S. Constitution has a carve-out exception for a slave class? For anyone in prison or jail in this country after being convicted of a crime. Think I'm pulling your leg? Will allow me to read it to you in full. Section 1 states, neither slavery nor voluntary servitude except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. That's the entire 13th Amendment. Does it now make sense why there are so many prisons and people in them? 2.3 million all over the U.S. for their cheap and free labor. That's why we really need a slave revolt from the inside. People who are suffering the most for being worked to the bone for pennies an hour and are mentally conditioned to accept eating spoiled, molded, rotten food, sleeping on brick-hard mattresses, substandard medical care, inferior eye care, next to no dental care, locked down 23 hours a day in general population, no substance abuse treatment, no meaningful psychological intervention, no transferable educational skills, extortionate canteen and catalog prices, repeated acts of criminal excessive force, sexual harassment via peeping Tom actions, sexual assaults by cops, and murder. Which brings me to why we are all here. Malcolm Jones. The death of the brothers Malcolm Jones and Ronquale Ditello-Scott Jr., 2 black lives extinguished far too soon, in less than 72 hours apart, at the notorious corrupt Racine County Jail. Lives that could have been saved if the individuals saw them with the same eyes they see wounded or injured cats and dogs on the side of the road, to which they eagerly leap to action. However, we know these jailers are not trained for the express purpose of sustaining life, only destroying life. If they look black or brown, it doesn't take much extrapolation to understand we have a case of criminal homicide. A stretch, you ask? Well, ask yourself this. Does Racine County have a restraining chair to prevent self-harm? Or do they have a 4-point restraining bed to prevent self-harm? In my 32 years of doing time, they will be criminally negligent not to have one, if not both. So you have to ask this follow-up question of your district attorney. Why did state-paid employees sit by and witness this man on 2 separate occasions bash his brains inside what they call a high visibility cell and did absolutely nothing to save his life? Now we have to say allegedly, because he told 911 dispatchers that he didn't want to die, and specifically told them he didn't want to be killed by the cops for good reason. We all know they've had a license to kill us since the inception of the slave patrols in 1619, the precursor of the cops today in this country. So ask your civic, religious, legal, and political leaders this. How does a perfectly healthy 27-year-old enter a county jail in Racine crying out for help and is pronounced dead days later by the same medical personnel who witnessed the so-called medical incident? What the hell does this nonsense mean? Call it what it was, murder. Ronquale Ditello-Scott Jr., the same question applies to brother Ronquale. How does a perfectly healthy 22-year-old enter the same jail and dies a few hours later in plain view. It's the same thing that brought Christopher Columbus to these shores to enslave, steal, plunder, rape, murder. And this too was murder. But they are going to make some underpaid, untrained, self-involved, low-level pig take the fall for this murder. I bet you a dime to donuts the investigative report will say something like this. The individuals responsible for this death did not follow protocol or adhere to our best practices, which contributed to Mr. Ditello-Scott's death. But in reality, we know all too well these type of individuals have always been left to their own whims and wants to decide whether our lives deserve saving or taking. And in Ronquale's case, these heartless pigs decided the latter. And I'm not saying nothing that isn't already known, but they said he was arrested for being under the influence. This alone is all the more reason that competent guards and medical staff who had eyes on him the entire time should have been monitoring his breathing, vitals, until he was stabilized. Instead, they willfully chose to watch him suffocate to death in their presence. So we must ask ourselves to sincerely ponder, why does all these murders and easily preventable deaths continue to happen in Racine County, throughout the state and the country consistently? I'll tell you why. Because the people who saw absolutely nothing wrong with the white cop shooting Jacob Blake in the back 7 times in Kenosha as he walked away from a pig are of the same mind as the coward cop who executed Tony Robinson in Madison. They are the same people who will clear these killers who murdered Ronquale and Malcolm, and Keith Gary, Muhammad Brady, Superman, Carlisle at CCI, and Antonio Watley in Green Bay last month. These killers share the universal disease of the mind and heart that informs them that anyone who doesn't look like them don't matter, that our lives are cheap, dispensable, devoid of worth. And this is why all over the state and this country, death and destruction visits us inequitably compared to our peers of other races. For in these turbulent times, cult followers of Trump are so sure that they are...
Other than properly placed, attorney calls may be monitored and recorded.
That they are on a historic march towards a new era of unapologetic white supremacy. That they have replaced their MAGA hats with white pillowcases. For how else can anyone rationalize that Wisconsin has become the undisputable most racist state in the union, according to reputable analysis and statistics, which ranks her between 1 and 5 in every category that matters for black children and black bodies. Let's review. Worst place to raise a black child. Worst place to educate a black child. Worst segregated schools. Worst segregated communities. Worst in over-incarceration of black bodies. Worst in sentencing disparities. Worst in weed arrest for black bodies. Worse in infant mortality. Worse in economic disparities. And nothing will change until we decide to stop accepting the totally unacceptable. Because they are free to apply legal and coercive pressure. Enough pressure to instill fear in the hearts and minds of all the POW class throughout this overwhelmingly racist state, which prevents us from standing up out of fear of being beat back down by the terroristic tactics the oppressor employs every day. Beatings, years in the hole, transfers to Supermax, denials of parole, and death like Ronquale and Malcolm. But I tell you, if you stop allowing these racists and terrorists to occupy space in your mind, you will discover that these little people can only do what you allow them to do. No more. And I know from experience, there is no greater thrill, more intoxicating than oppressing your lifelong oppressor. Revolutionary love from a black cat on his 99th life. That's it, bro.
Say their name! Malcolm and Quill! What's their name?
Malcolm and Quill!
Say their name!
Malcolm and Quill!
What's their name?
Malcolm and Quill!
Justice for who?
Malcolm and Quill!
Justice for who?
Malcolm and Quill!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
If we don't get it,
Shut it down!
until we get it,
Shut it down!
until we get it,
Shut it down!
Next, I want to welcome up Ben Turk to speak on behalf of Abolish MKE. Like I said earlier, Ben Turk has worked for years on the prison abolition movement. And he's done a lot for prisoners and for prison solidarity all around the state and all around this country. So I want to welcome up Ben Turk.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to thank the families of Malcolm and Quill and offer condolences. Thank you all for coming out and doing this work and fighting this fight. The really terrible truth is that as long as prison exists, these things are going to continue to happen. This is not an exception. These are not isolated incidents. This is a system that is designed to do this to people. And as long as we have prisons, people are going to end up dead in those cages. As Xavier and Tammy and Sherry talked about, and everybody has talked about, the things that Malcolm and Quill were put into that building for are inconsequential. You know, he blew a zero on the OWI, or he was having a mental health issue he didn't need to be put in there. And that just shows that what police do, the vast majority of the time, is also unnecessary. You know, we hear about Philando Castile getting killed. We hear about all of these situations where someone is being murdered because they got pulled over for doing nothing. And that's because that's the majority of what the police do, is pull people over for doing nothing or for doing very small municipal violations. Like 90% of the police's time, you know, they talk about homicide all the time, but 90% of their time is spent giving small tickets to people or arresting people and taking them into prisons on bullshit. So don't let them dominate that narrative about public safety, because the people that they attack are part of the public as well. And the police are a threat to public safety.
Facts. Say that.
And what happened, I mean, Damani mentioned it in there, but there was a man named Muhammad Bracy who died a few years ago at Columbia Correctional. He was a Muslim. He was targeted for medical neglect by the guards. He died kneeling and praying at his bed. And that's how they found his body. Antonia Watley was killed just a month ago in Green Bay Correctional. Again, medical neglect. Everybody on the tier was pounding on the doors saying, "Help this guy." The cops came and said, you know, what do you need? And he was like, "I need a wheelchair to get out of here." And they said, if you don't, we're not going to bring you a wheelchair. And because he demanded a wheelchair, they left him there to die. There are uncountable instances of people dying of medical neglect and of mental health abuse in the Wisconsin prison system. The thing with prison is that humanity hates a cage, and so people are going to be fighting back. As our friend from the PSL said, he was on the ground being beaten, and the cops kept saying, "Stop resisting." I've seen videos of people in solitary confinement cells, and the cops are saying, "Stop resisting." They're wearing body armor, they've got shields, they've got him on the ground, they're putting handcuffs on him, they're breaking his fingers, they're beating the shit out of him, and they're saying, "Stop resisting," the whole time that they do it. It's fucked up. And so, but I mean, fundamentally, if you solve social problems by putting people in boxes, then you're gonna solve the prison problems by putting people in smaller boxes. And that's why we have solitary confinement. And you're going to solve the problems of people who are having mental breakdowns in solitary confinement, which causes mental breakdowns, by putting them in restraint chairs and restraint beds, like Damani mentioned. And that's a form of torture. That's what the fucking Nazis did in concentration camps. Putting someone in a chair and leaving them there for hours or days on end in one position, that's incredibly painful, but it leaves no marks. So they're able to say, this isn't torture, we're not hurting anybody, because there's no marks from it. And that's common practice. We've done records requests for, like, you know, what happened over this month in this prison to try to find out something about a single instance, and we see dozens of other people with their names blacked out who are put in restraint chairs. And so resistance to prison has always been here as long as prison has existed. People have fought back against this shit. The high point came in 1971. I'm going to go on a little history lesson here. With a man named George Jackson. He was locked up 10 years prior to that for stealing $70 in a stick-up at a gas station. And he was sentenced in California to 1 year to life for $70. In prison, he fought back. He formed a Black Panther chapter inside the prison. He started the Black Guerrilla Family, and he literally fought back. He accumulated all kinds of, you know, disciplinary infractions. He was thrown in solitary confinement, but he kept fighting, and it escalated to a full-on war of attrition with people losing lives on both sides. He was framed for murdering guards. Guards retaliated and killed his friends. Eventually, on August 21st, 1971, he attempted to escape, and the guards responded by killing him. And there's evidence that he was tortured before he was killed. People say that they, you know, just shot him because he was trying to break out, but there's evidence he was tortured before he was killed. You might have heard of Angela Davis. She was one of his contemporaries. His brother, Jonathan Jackson, did a holdup at a county jail where they were trying to charge George with some of these murders. And so, like, that is the level of escalation that the fight back against prison used to take back in the day. And when word of George Jackson's death spread across the country and reached New York, it inspired and kicked off the Attica Rebellion, which is the largest prison uprising in the history of this country. And it's a terrible instance of the police coming in and they just killed everybody. And just like this situation, the police lied about what happened. You know, the National Guard shot down into the yard to retake the prison. There's tons of information about this. It's I can't go on a history lesson forever and ever, but I'm just telling you, like, they lied, and it was because of protests, because of the kind of things that we're doing here today. That a medical examiner finally revealed that the hostage guards were killed by bullets, and the prisoners had no guns. So it was the National Guard who killed their fellow guards. And so, after that, following that, there have been frequent bloody uprisings. This is just one example of these instances and fighting back in the U.S., but across the country through the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. And the state responded by building solitary confinement units and building supermax prisons. And that led to the kind of state of affairs that we have in Wisconsin prisons and in jails across this state today. I want to uphold some stuff we have here. This is I also volunteer with the Milwaukee Lit Supply, and we've got information. Blood in My Eye is a series of letters that George Jackson wrote right before his death. The next Milwaukee Lit Supply podcast is going to be about this zine. You can pick up a copy there, and you can listen in and participate. We have a new zine. This is by Miriam Ekaba and Project Nia on the Attica Uprising. There's tons of information you can find on Attica and online. And this year there's going to be a mobilization nationwide from August 21st, the anniversary of George Jackson's assassination, to September 9th, the anniversary of Attica kicking off. It's organized by Jailhouse Lawyers Speak. We got flyers like this over there. We're going to have a GA up in Milwaukee on July 21st. We hope you all can make it out and come and help us plan what we want to do during those days here in Wisconsin. So this history, it goes all the way back, as some of the prior speakers mentioned, talking about convict leasing and the 13th Amendment. And so we can trace what goes on in the prison system to 1619, to the middle passage of people being put in ships and having their lives erased and their humanity erased. We've got another zine that talks about that in more detail, something that it's a chapter from an international book on penal abolition that I co-authored. And another zine here that I just want to hold up. These are some friends of mine from Ohio. The Lucasville Uprising is one of the longest uprisings in U.S. history. And the people from that are on death row in solitary confinement to this day. People who actually ended that uprising peacefully. And so this is just something that we need to underline and understand about the prison system. That, you know, we either have a situation where there are frequent deaths and uprisings and violence in the prison system, or we have a situation of solitary confinement. When people talk about solitary confinement, so Solitary Watch says there's 80,000 people on any given day suffering and being tortured in solitary confinement in this country. Some of these people have been in there for decades, spent more than half their lives. I know guys who have spent more than half their lives in a single room that's smaller than your bathroom, sometimes with no human contact at all. That's torture. That's total destruction of someone's lives. It is amazing that these friends of mine are able to still have conversations. I can't imagine what it would be like to spend that kind of time. But the prison authorities say we need solitary confinement for security. And they're not wrong, because before solitary confinement, before the Supermax, there were all these uprisings. So if you believe in prison, if you believe that putting people in prison is necessary and important, you need to accept that you are either talking about people dying in bloody uprisings or people dying in solitary confinement. Those are necessary parts of the prison system. And so we need to build these alternatives. We don't need that kind of shit. And a lot of times people talk about, oh, we can have rehabilitation and all that. Wisconsin currently spends $31,000 per person to put people in prison. And that's terrible conditions in those prisons. That's the bargain basement. And it still costs that much money. If you had enough money to give people rehabilitation and all the nice things that you think you might be able to give someone in a correctional facility, you'd have enough money to just pay them to have a middle-class life, and they wouldn't need, you know, have any problems in the first fucking place. It's nonsense. And it's both parties who are involved in this. Right now, the Wisconsin Democrats are trying to build a youth prison up in Milwaukee, similar to RYOC right here in Racine. And that facility is to help close down Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake. It has a capacity of 37 people. There are currently only 27 kids from Milwaukee at Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake. They want to build this new prison. It costs $45 million and $7 million per year to operate. You can make those 37 kids millionaires, but instead you're going to build cages for them. What the fuck is that? Like, what is the pathology behind that? And so, yeah, we can have a world without police and without prisons. We don't need this. The vast majority of human history has existed without prisons and police. And like everybody who spoke before me said, we can redirect money to actual mental health treatment. We can stop harassing people and like enforcing laws about smoking pot or trespassing or speeding or a lot of this other bullshit that people are being pulled over and harassed and targeted and eventually sometimes killed for. We can just stop doing that. We can solve social problems with other methods. And I think we also need to recognize that, like, but you can't do that and protect the vast wealth inequality and racism and white supremacy that exists in our society. So when we're talking about abolishing prison, we're also talking about abolishing capitalism. We're also talking about abolishing white supremacy. We're also talking about abolishing heteropatriarchy. We need to tear all these things down because what the role of prison and police is to build those things up and to maintain them and to keep them operating. So we need to take all that apart, and we need to recognize that every time that you have a conflict with somebody in your life and you resolve it without calling the fucking police to come in and harass and hurt them instead, you are practicing abolition already. We are building those alternatives already. It already exists in our lives. We don't need to live this way. We don't need to be dependent on this shit. So take care of each other. Build up this power. and build power to demand that the state stop doing what it's doing now, that it start, like, if the state's going to exist, it should be giving us education and healthcare and those basic necessities. But also, the state doesn't need to fucking exist. We can take care of ourselves and each other, right?
That's right. That's right. Say that shit.
All right. Thank you.
Malcolm and Quell! 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 Justice! Now! Shut it down! Shut it down! So I want to underscore that everything that's been said today, everything that we've heard is in honor of Malcolm and Ronquale. Everything is in their honor. Everything is in their name. We're recognizing them. We're recognizing the suffering that they went through and that their families are going through, because it's necessary. We have to do that in order to come to a point where we all understand, where we broadly, societally understand that these institutions can't exist. These types of things, they get pushed under the rug. The cases of Malcolm and Ronquale, they tried to push them under the rug. The cases of abuse in prisons and incarceration facilities, in jails, in internment camps, all over the country gets pushed under the rug. Because guess what? It's out of sight and it's out of the mind's eye of society. And it's intentional. So we're gonna bring all that stuff out. We're gonna lift up the rug and show all the dirty shit that's under it, so that society can fully understand what is happening and what needs to be done. And just like Ben said, these institutions, the police, the jails, the state in general, does not need to exist. We can do things ourselves. We can take care of each other because we love each other and we respect each other. And it's the state and these institutions that forces violence upon us. So with that in mind, we're going to get to our community speak out a portion of this. The first person that signed up was Liliana to speak, so I want to invite them to come up and speak.
Hello. My name is Liliana. I have been a friend of the Scott family for about 4 years. Ronquale was a really good friend of mine. I've just started now to know his Aunt Tammy and all his other family, who is super fantastic. Also just started getting close with members of the James family, Miss Sherry, who's over there, fantastic lady. I want to come up here and say that these two men were set up for failure. Before any of this happened, they were set up for failure.
Say that! Say that.
They were set up for failure. This jail, this is not the first time, this is not going to be the last time that this is going to happen. Unless we all get it together and bring this out, nobody's going to know what's going on. They thought that we weren't going to find out what was going on, and we did. We have waited a month and had no answers, nothing. Radio silence. No one's offered a condolence to either family. Ronquale was a good man. Like, Ronquale was the only person I knew. If I needed something, it didn't matter what he was doing or where he would drop everything he was doing to help me do what I needed to do. He has babies, he has family, he has brothers and sisters who needed him here, and they took him for no reason. None. It's Sherry's son, Malcolm. So you're telling me if I went into the jail in a bad state of mind, I am less likely to come out alive than the next person because I got mental health issues. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yep.
Right? So they killed him because he had a mental health crisis. How dumb does that sound? The last thing she's seen of her son was a video released by the sheriff's department without her permission, violating HIPAA laws, him in a distressed state. That's how he chose to portray Malcolm to the community. From what I understand, Malcolm was a loving man. Malcolm was a good man. He was not a menace. He was not dangerous. He had mental health issues. He needed some help, and instead they killed him. Quell struggled with a lot of things internally. He had a lot going on. He was not a bad man, and he did not deserve to die. We all shouldn't have to be here today. We shouldn't be here having to protest. They should be here with us. We should be at home. This is ridiculous. You know what else I think is funny? You never hear about white people dying in the jail. When is the last time y'all heard a white person died in this jail?
That's right.
You didn't, because it doesn't happen. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I've been quiet through all these protests, but I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. They want to keep on issuing these bogus press releases and these little ooh-boo-hoo statements. It's bullshit. We know what happened. It's bullshit. And I'm going to stand here and I'm going to march around this funky town until my feet are bleeding because I don't want this to happen to nobody else. My son should not have to grow up in a world where he is targeted for being black. This is ridiculous and it needs to stop.
Right.
I wanted to thank everybody for coming, and I want everybody to know that this is not over yet. No amount of protesting or justice or rallies is going to bring them back. But all we can do is try to make a difference for the next.
Right.
Malcolm and Quayle! Malcolm and Quayle! Malcolm and Quayle!
Next, I want to invite Rashad up to come speak.
How y'all doing?
Right.
To be honest, I don't even know where to start. I ain't even gonna hold y'all too long on this. I can tell y'all one thing I know, I'm pissed. I am furious. My family, us, the Ditello family, the James family shouldn't be having to do this right now.
That's right.
This is something like I've been going through as a black man for so long. I used to live in a place called Burlington, Wisconsin. I used to go to school out there. I used to fight things like this all the time, but never on this type of scale. Yeah, sure, it's for our school and stuff like that. We would see things, you know what I'm saying? People discriminating against my type of color and stuff like that, but never on this type of scale. And then it seems like the more we try to fight, because I used to help, I was the president of the Black Student Alliance. I had to help bring in the people of color and help them feel like they're safe. I wasn't able to do that for him. And if y'all don't know, I'm sorry, I co-parent also with the Ditello-Scott family. I was Ronquale's, his recent baby mama. I'm her recent baby daddy. I apologize, but I'm trying to say it right. But we co-parenting and stuff, and like I ain't gonna act like we were the closest people. I'm not gonna act like we were the closest people. But from the time that I met him, we first hit it off, he left a great impression on me. He left a lasting impression on me. And from what I've learned from his family, that boy had a big heart. And you know, he always hears from his family that he wanted to change the world. Well, you doing it. You're doing it in a way that you never thought possible. I promise you that. And I say I ain't gonna hold y'all too much longer, man, but at the same time, even for the Scott family, when they released that video, without their permission.
Ain't right. Ain't right.
Say that.
Ain't right.
So at the end of the day, that didn't prove a damn thing. I said, man, like, I'm glad y'all here. I'm glad we doing this. It warms my heart that these two gentlemen helped spark something that ain't gonna stop until we get some justice around here.
Right.
And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I got to do this. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I have to go through this because I'm not no super good person. I ain't perfect. I've been in the justice system. I've been in the jail system myself. You know what I'm saying? I've been in the hole, just like he was saying. I know how it is to be incarcerated by yourself in solitary confinement. That stuff plays with your mind. And what we need is people out there that's gonna help us bring these people and try to heal them and help them. Bring these people that have mental illness and stuff like that. I mean, I've seen what they do on the inside. I know how that stuff go. It can be done way better. Like, I might have all the answers. I don't have all the solutions and stuff like that, but it's stuff like this is how we get towards those solutions. Like I said, I thank y'all so much. Like I said, I ain't gonna hold y'all much longer, but thank you. Thank you.
Malcolm and Quayle! Malcolm and Quayle! Malcolm and Quayle! Malcolm and Quayle! All right, I want to invite Christian up to speak on this issue. So, Christian, here you go.
Thank you very much. All right, so yeah, my name is Christian, and I'm also a part of Party for Socialism and Liberation here in Milwaukee. So, if you see this sign right here, it says "End the War on Black America," because we are in war. America is at war with black people. Period. It's an genocidal war too. They use the prisons, they use the pig cops, and all their laws and systems to try to destroy us. that's just pretty much how this country was founded. It was founded by the genocide of black people and the genocide of Native American people. So it's to the point where it's like, excuse me. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. So it's just at a point where we as black people, we as black, brown, and indigenous people, we have to realize, like, yo, enough is enough. And we have to, and how we do that is start to uprise and destroy these prisons and destroy these fucking courthouse, because these courthouse ain't shit neither. Can't no black person get a fair trial in America. No black person get a fair trial in America. So we have to destroy the courthouses, have to destroy the jail systems, and we have to destroy the pig cops. But how we do that is that we definitely have to abolish capitalism, and we have to replace that with socialism here in America. That's what we have to do. Well, how we do that is we have to organize. We have to come together as working class people and know that we have our rights out here, and that we are able to take control of our own destiny. You know what I'm saying? And yes, and the way we do that is through protesting and things like that. Everything that you can do to attack the state. You know, whether it's protesting or other methods and means, but being revolutionary means, because we have to attack the state. We have to attack the pigs. We have to attack the whole power structure and rebel against this power structure, because this power structures don't give a fuck about us, so we shouldn't give a fuck about them. That's on period. You know what I'm saying? That's on period. So I just want to say thank y'all for coming out. Let's continue to work together, learn from each other, and fight against this system, rebel against this system, and prevail against this system, because this system will die, and it's going to die by the hands of the people, which is us, because we're stronger, because we're all stronger than them. Thank you.
Say that. We are stronger than the system, all of us. Just like Christian said, we're stronger than the system. We can destroy this system. Thank you, Christian. The next person I want to invite up is Zapata to speak next.
Malcolm Inquire! Malcolm Inquire! Malcolm Inquire! Malcolm Inquire!
I didn't plan to speak, so I'm going to be very briefly. First of all, I want to thank the families for being here. You know, it's a tough thing to speak about, but important to speak on. Just very briefly, I'm going to speak briefly because I didn't plan to speak. But thank you to the family of Malcolm, James, and Ronquale for being here and speaking on something that's very tough for your families to go through, but important to let everyone know the injustices that are happening in the criminal justice system every single day. I know somebody said before that they had experiences with experiencing what it's like to be in solitary confinement. I had the misfortune of being solitary for only 60 hours, and it was torture. You're in a little bed, in a little box, cement square with a mattress this thin, and that's what they call your bed. They feed you almost nothing. There's no real water there, no clean water. There's a toilet for everything you need to do, and that's it. Leave you naked. Yep, everything. Yeah, if your cell, if another cell floods, your floor is getting flooded, and that's how it was for me for 62 hours, and I can't imagine what it's like to be there any longer than that, because that's torture, and it needs to stop everywhere, and it's not going to stop with us just creating reforms. It's only going to stop with us abolishing prisons and abolishing the police, because as it exists, the police not protect us. We see that they murder us each and every single day, and the police and the jails don't do anything. They don't disappear problems. They disappear people. And in this capitalist system where profits are put over people, nothing is going to get changed because they're making money on the jails. They make so much money off not giving us enough food, not giving us the things that we need, and all of that is going to the pockets of the capitalists. Everyone who's running those jails, who's giving them, who's the vendors for those, they're making money off of our enslavement, because that's what it is. Slavery is still legal inside prisons, and that's something that not a lot of people realize. And yeah, we need to abolish that. There's no reforming police as it is. We need to abolish them. We need to defund them. We need to fund mental health services that we all really need. And this is some of I have some mental health problems and challenges that it's challenging enough that for me, someone who's undocumented and can't get health care, to find affordable mental health care. Yeah, and that's not going to change until we have health care for everyone else, and we abolish prisons and we abolish the police that exist, because they don't know how to deal with mental health problems and they don't know how to deal with our communities. So we don't need them in our communities at all. Thank you all for coming.
Malcolm and Quell! Malcolm and Quell! Malcolm and Quell! Justice! Now! Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down!
So I want to take this opportunity to invite anybody else who wants to say anything to come up and speak. I know let's put people on the spot a little bit, but if anybody has any intervention they want to make, talking about anything, their experiences, their family's experiences, just kind of what they heard today, the invite is open right now. I'll give it a few seconds. All right, Maddie is going to come say some words.
Thank you so much for doing that. I just want to highlight another name in Milwaukee that's really important for us to recognize, because his life was taken in response to a mental health crisis, and that's Roberto Zielinski, also known as Chewy. The footage was just released the other day, and I mean, it's really heart-wrenching to watch, but the police arrived to deal with the mental health crisis. This is a man who was very clearly, very obviously on the video, on the audio, dealing with the situation. 2 police showed up on the scene. As soon as one of the police officers got out of the car, the first thing he kept repeating was, "I'm going to take him down. I'm going to take him down." So this is the mentality that these police have responding to a mental health crisis. Human lives do not matter to the police. This person was undergoing a serious crisis, and yes, he had a gun, but that does not excuse killing somebody to prevent them from committing suicide. That is still murder. It is not okay. And all these cops, all these jails, all this system that is saying, we are going to prevent a crime. Suicide, as absurd as it is a crime. And therefore, the police were doing exactly what they were supposed to do by killing him, to prevent him from killing himself. So I just want to take a moment for us to also think about the family and the memory of Roberto Zielinski. Thank you. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to say anything, make any intervention here today? All right, let's take a moment for Malcolm and Quell. Fist up. This fight does not stop here. It doesn't stop in Racine. This fight can't be held within borders or within time. This fight will continue always and forever until this entire system has been smashed, and until no more deaths occur. because of the state forces, because of prisons, because of police. This fight is eternal for generations. Family after family, across this country, all of us, together.
Yes, sir.
Solidarity, everybody. I thank you all for being here. The fight does not end here. We'll move forward and we will seek justice for Malcolm and Racquale at all costs. Thank you.
All right, one more message real quick before we head out. So my comrade just talked about Roberto Solinsky. It will actually be a candlelight vigil going down in Milwaukee for him tonight. So if y'all free, you're down to come up to Milwaukee and pay tribute and show solidarity to the family. Come up there. And also, one last message that I forgot to mention is that we also have to free all political prisoners up in here through abolition of the police. Because what he just talked about, he was talking about George Jackson. We also have to free all the people that's been in the dungeons for years, such as Ruchell McGee, Jalil Al-Amin, also known as H. Rap Brown. All the pretty much every other Black Panther that's been stuck in the jails and prisons literally since his founding. So we have to just also continue to lift their names up and let them know that they're not forgotten and that they will be free through the power of the people. Thank you.
Malcolm and Racquale! Malcolm and Racquale! Malcolm and Racquale! Malcolm and Racquale! Justice! Now! Shut it down! 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 So yeah, check out the literature on prison abolition over there. There's a couple tables with articles about abolishing the police, abolishing prisons, histories of prison uprisings. Definitely check out the Lit Table Milwaukee and the PSL Lit Table. And thank you all for coming. We greatly appreciate it.
All right, you guys, that's the wrap on this event. Again, this was honoring Malcolm and Ronquale, who died at in the hands of the Racine County Police Department. And people are basically saying they want more accountability for people that are in the hands of the police. You guys know, as always, if you can't come real, then at least come raw. Thanks for joining, you guys. Until next time, raw topic.